We have another great matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, as it seems as though over the last decade and a half, these two teams always meet on the biggest of stages, and that is the case on Thursday. Primetime matchup on Thanksgiving, as we're going to preview this Week 12 game between two of the fiercest rivals in all of football. It is going to be a John Madden Thanksgiving celebration. San Francisco hitting the road in the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seahawks in Seattle, Washington. San Francisco on a short week as the road team, still 7-point favorites in this football game, and the total over-under a little bit lower, as I believe the odds makers are factoring in short week. These two teams know each other really well, and that's why that total is at 42.5. Also, Seattle could be without Geno Smith. We'll talk about him more so in just a couple of minutes. You take a gander at the NFC West standings. This game huge for San Francisco because if they win it, they continue to further distance themselves from Seattle. Seattle currently number 2 in this division. They just lost again to the Los Angeles Rams after they lost to LA in Week 1. San Francisco sitting pretty here at 7-3, and it's an opportunity here with taking on Seattle 2 times in 3 weeks to really clinch and lock down this division, but to also make a statement against a formidable opponent. Los Angeles Rams still kind of in the mix in the playoff hunt for one of those wild card spots at 4-6, and you can say that the Cardinals are done here at 2-9. From the NFC West standings to the NFC playoff picture, Philadelphia Eagles getting a win over the Kansas City Chiefs. They are still the number 1 seed in the NFC. An NFL best 9-1 record. Detroit Lions at 8-2, San Francisco 7-3, New Orleans 5-5, and then you see those teams in the wild card hunt: Cowboys 7-3, Seattle 6-4. Minnesota 6-5. Seattle needs this game badly to remain as a playoff contending team in the NFC playoff picture. Seahawks in this game, they are banged up and they've suffered some injuries to really important positions. Most notably, quarterback. Drew Lock had to come in and play against the Los Angeles Rams because Geno Smith was in and out of that game. A triceps injury. Pete Carroll said that he's questionable. Not sure if he's going to be able to play. This could take a couple of days, and the triceps injury is on his throwing arm. Jamal Adams, what do you know? Injured once again. He too questionable on a short week with a knee. Dareke Young, the wide receiver, questionable with an abdomen injury. And then you look at a player like Abraham Lucas, one of the Seahawks' best offensive linemen. He's questionable with a knee ailment. Kenneth Walker, oblique. I doubt that he's going to be able to play. Pete Carroll did say that oblique injury is somewhat serious. And then Jerrick Reed at safety, also questionable. For San Francisco, it is very rare that they are this healthy, knock on wood, going into this juncture of the season. Under head coach Kyle Shanahan, they've been top 10 in injury rate every year since 2017. But right now on the injury report, Aaron Banks, questionable with the toe injury. Spencer Burford, a late addition to the injury report on Tuesday. And then Talanoa Hufanga with that ACL injury. He's going to be out this game and for the rest of the year. Before we continue to move forward with our preview, make sure you subscribe to the channel and join us for our Niners Seahawks Thanksgiving watch party. We're going to have some Thanksgiving food here at the Chat Sports Studios. It's going to be me and Trizzy Trace and all of the faithful tuned in from everywhere. I hope at that point, by the time we go live, you're ready to share some drinks with us. You're ready to just sit back on your couch and experience game day with us here on the show and turn on your notifications. Therefore, whenever we go live, whenever we push out a video, you will be notified. With that, let's transition to my keys to the game. Whether Geno Smith plays or not, this is a Seahawks team that does have offensive talent. And even if Drew Lock has to play, San Francisco's 3-game losing streak started losing to P.J. Walker, who's not even starting anymore after Deshaun Watson is out for the year. They're going with the rookie and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And to stop Seattle, this is a solid group here. We'll see if Geno suits up, but they have a really good wide receiver trio and some good weapons on that side of the ball. And San Francisco, at times this year, has struggled in the secondary. DK Metcalf, he's a handful to defend. Tyler Lockett, excellent player. And then the rookie first-round pick out of Ohio State, Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is a very slippery player who has a very diverse route tree. And Geno, having a solid year. I thought that he was going to come crashing down to the player that he actually is after having a career year last year, and he's done that. He's been somewhat mediocre to bad over the last couple of weeks. I just don't think he's a long-term starter in this league, and it was a win for San Francisco when Seattle gave him that contract extension. This year, he's completing 65% of his passes. He does offer a little mobility to that quarterback position, 240 yards per game. He's only thrown for 12 touchdowns and 7 picks. But this Niners pass defense, again, they've struggled in moments. A lot of these numbers have happened in garbage time, so context is obviously important for any type of debate or conversation that you're going to have, whether you're talking football, relationships, or politics. But opposing pass play percentage, Niners, 31st in the NFL. Opposing completion percentage, they're 21st in the NFL. Opposing passes per game, Niners 30th. Opposing pass yards per game, also 30th. And then their sack percentage, and this is really a byproduct of them struggling to sack the quarterback previous to the last 2 weeks when they've gotten after Trevor Lawrence as well as Baker Mayfield, 5 and 4 sacks respectively. It's 22nd in the NFL. So if they can't generate pressure against Geno Smith or Drew Lock with those weapons on the Seattle offensive side of the football, this defense could give up some points. So with that, the most pressing question this week, it's not when you go to Thanksgiving and you're at the table with your family and they're asking you if you're dating anybody. No, that's not the most pressing question. It's who you got on Thursday night. San Francisco or Seattle. Let us know in the chat right now. F the Sea Chickens. More to get to with our preview, but if you haven't downloaded the PrizePicks app, you are making a mistake. This is the largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America, and we have the best deal to tell you about that any DFS app in the United States has to offer. Yeah, that's right, a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. I was a massive winner last Sunday, but here at the Chat Sports offices, we all got together and we like some of these selections with this Thanksgiving slate coming up, but I really just want to pop this up to also tell you about some of the specials that PrizePicks has to offer. For instance, this week, get it right now while it's hot. Christian McCaffrey, more or less a half rushing and receiving yard. All he has to do is gain 1 yard? Yeah, I think that's going to happen for the NFL's leading rusher. Jahmyr Gibbs, more than 78.5 rushing and receiving yards. Tony Pollard, more than 58.5 rushing yards. And then Brandon Ayuk and DK Metcalf, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown combined. I think that there's a good chance that those picks can hit. And if you want to tail us, head to prizepicks.com/CLNS. We provide you with great Niners analysis. We provide you with some good intel on these selections as well. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Key to the game number 2. San Francisco has to protect Brock Purdy as well as protect the football. When San Francisco has gone on the road the last 2 years, they've been penalized a lot and they've given the football away. You can't afford to do that in a hostile environment, considering how well these teams know one another, with how desperate the Seahawks are. And turnovers can change the momentum of a football game, as we know. Look at these Seahawks turnover stats this year. Turnover margin per game, they are 9th in the NFL. San Francisco is plus 10 in turnover differential. That's very good. Giveaways per game, Seattle forcing more than 1. That's 7th in the NFL. Takeaways per game, 1.5. That's 16th. And then interceptions thrown, 5. That is 17th in the National Football League. So Seattle is ball hungry, and that's why ball security is going to be important. Give me that stat. Brock Purdy going to the pressure aspect of this, and I bring this up because San Francisco's offensive line probably had its best collective performance of the year against the Buccaneers on Sunday. Purdy has only been sacked 20 times so far this season. That is tied for 22nd most in the NFL among 32 teams. Now, the pressure rate is not all that great for San Francisco, but that's a credit, too, to Brock Purdy getting rid of the ball fast. A player to watch for this Seahawks defense is Boye Mafe, the linebacker, edge rusher combo. He leads the Seahawks in sacks with 7 this year. He ended his streak of 7 straight games with a sack in last week's loss against the Rams. His Pro Football Focus grades are very good, and I can already guarantee you that Boye Mafe is going to be lined up on that Colton McKivitz side looking to exploit the Niners' weakness. Maybe even Seattle puts him up against the right guard, regardless of who it plays, whether it's John Feliciano or it's Spencer Burford or somebody else. His Pro Football Focus grades an 80 overall grade defensively and then a pass rush grade of 79.4. That's a player that can wreck the game, and a hit on Brock Purdy can lead to a turnover, and that's how the Seahawks are able to feast. For San Francisco, I think it's equally important to pressure the quarterback. We took a look at some of the numbers earlier, but how about some of these in-depth numbers as to how this Niners team has been faring of late in generating sacks but also pressures? In particular, what they did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Arik Armstead was a game changer, and he has been in 3 consecutive games, because in 3 consecutive games, he's tallied at least a half sack. He had 12 pressures against a top 10 ranked offensive line that the Buccaneers have. 12 pressures in a single game. That's crazy. So he was pressuring Baker Mayfield and collapsing the pocket through the middle and on the interior. That's huge. Clouding up the vision for the quarterback. Nick Bosa had 9 pressures against the Bucs. Newly acquired Chase Young tallied 5, and Javon Hargrave had 4. The Niners as a team had 38 pressures against Tampa Bay. If they do that against Seattle, I think they're hopping on a plane, and they're coming back to the Bay Area with that fat dub. Tackle, tackle, tackle. Another huge key to this football game. Seattle under Pete Carroll is always a very well-coached squad. And they take advantage of miscues, turnovers, penalties, but also missed tackles. And this Niners defense has been at its best when they're tackling well. And when they don't, that's when they lose, that's when they falter. You look at the missed tackles tallied by week against the Steelers, Rams and Giants, as well as Arizona and Dallas. 5-0 start. 7-8, not great. Then they shorted up. 3-4-2. 3-game losing streak. They missed 10 tackles against Cleveland, 9 against Minnesota, and 13 against Cincinnati. But in back-to-back wins, only 7 against Jacksonville, and then only 4 against Tampa Bay. You miss tackles, it leads to first down conversions. It leads to elongated drives. It leads to teams going from not being able to put up points on the scoreboard via a field goal or touchdown to putting points up on the scoreboard. And when you miss tackles and those negative plays happen, it absolutely deflates you. Lastly, for my keys to the game, I want to see a well-balanced offensive attack. And so far, when San Francisco has played its best football, it is when they are evenly balanced. Now, going into that game against Tampa Bay, the Bucs had one of the top rushing defenses in the National Football League, and I had predicted that the Niners were going to rely on Brock Purdy to win the game and air it out a lot to have success because the Bucs were so stout against the run. That's what happened. And Brock Purdy was able to elevate and respond and flourish with the first perfect passer rating since Joe Montana in 1989. But going on the road, it's going to be loud. So if you can establish that run to set up the pass and vice versa, and Seattle is sitting back on its heels and they don't know what to expect with McCaffrey running it, Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason as the backups. I know I want to see more J.P. Mason as well. I beat you to it with your thought. And then with all the weapons, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, it just makes this offense so multiple, so diverse, and so difficult to defend. With that, now we ask you to predict the score. I asked you earlier to predict who wins. San Francisco, Seattle, one of the best rivalries, not just in football, but in all of sports. My prediction, I do not think that the Niners are going to be able to score more than 30 points. I think the Seahawks defense is too good for that, and this is a team that's too desperate with a very good pass rush. But I do think San Francisco wins by 8, and they end up covering what is about a touchdown line in favor of San Francisco as they're giving 7 to Seattle. My final score on Thanksgiving, 28-20.